With Ryan Shumpert, Brent Hubbs, VolQuest.com, we go around the horn on this Saturday edition of Around the Horn after Tennessee takes a home series over Kentucky. They win the rubber game on Saturday, taking care of the Wildcats by a score of 11-2. Interesting series, Ryan, in the standpoint that Tennessee's best pitcher to date didn't have his best stuff on Thursday night, but he got it done. They got a really good outing from Will Heflin and couldn't capitalize on it in the bullpen. And then today, the freshman, as we talked about, they did well to show up, and he was really good today.
Yes, it was really kind of somewhat of a backwards weekend. Tennessee's played in a ton of close games this year. Maybe you've only had about 4 or 5 SEC games that weren't really competitive, and then all 3 games this weekend end up having lopsided scores. Now, the Saturday game and Friday game were both competitive deep into the game, but a little bit different on that end. And like you said, Chad Dallas wasn't great, but was able to fight his way through it, get Tennessee deep into that game, and make the work a little less for the bullpen. And then Heflin kind of had a typical Will Heflin performance. Was really good the first 2 times through the lineup, ran into a little bit of trouble that third time, but still overall, I think you take 2 earned runs. I think what was 6 1/3 innings just about every single time with him. And then you mentioned Tidwell. That was a big bounce back for him. He really hadn't been great for 4 straight starts, and he wasn't his best today, or wasn't elite today by any means, but he was really solid when he got into trouble, which it seemed like a lot of innings Kentucky had base runners on. He really didn't let it affect him. He didn't give up too much damage, and he put Tennessee in a great position to win.
Tennessee's bats in this offense feels like it's coming alive. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to turn into a juggernaut, but we've gone from thinking, can Tennessee find a way to steal a run here or there to win? 7 more home runs this weekend. They're getting better production up and down the lineup. It feels like this offense is starting to click a little bit more than it was early in SEC play.
Yes, and I think you're seeing a little bit at least of an identity change. You said 7 home runs this weekend, just 10 walks, a lot less grinding down at bats as the weather gets warmer, and Tennessee's power really seems to get going. And it's what's been impressive about it is they've gotten the power production from guys that aren't just their mainstays. Luke Lipsius hit a home run every game this weekend. Jackson Greer went deep 2 times, so they're really starting to get multiple guys going, especially in the power regard. And I think it will be interesting to see going forward, because I think you're starting to see the Tennessee offense that we kind of expected to see before the season. Maybe not as much power, maybe not as much firepower as they had last year when they had Zach Daniels and Alex Solari, but plenty of guys that are capable of hitting the ball a long ways. And you're really starting to see this team. I think the last 3 weekends, they've almost matched their amount of home runs that they'd had the whole season previous to that. So it's certainly been a change, and should be really interesting to watch going forward if they can keep it going against some higher level SEC competition.
When you look at the score, 11-2 feels like that thing was, a runaway. But when Walsh comes into the game, that's still a game there. He gives up the 1 RBI, the single on the runner he inherited at third. But then from there, he looked like a guy we've not seen in the last month. How big of a deal was that for him to cruise the way? And how big of a deal was it for Tony Vitello that Redmond Walsh cruised the way he did to close out this game on Saturday?
I think it's a huge deal. And you look at it, he gave up that 1 run inherited that was on an error. And, people are going to look at his numbers, didn't allow a single base runner besides that, and going to think, it was a blowout, not a huge situation, but it was a really big situation that he came into. And he did a great job of, now the game had gotten spread out, but he did a great job of locking things down and saying Kentucky's not going to get back in this game. So I think you look at it, he's had 4 straight SEC outings where he's given up just 1 run. I think it's 7.1 innings there. So he's really starting to get back to form. And both Vitello and he talked about it post game today. He was trying to do some new things, was trying to implement a cutter a few weeks ago, and that was he was changing his grip with some pitches, and that really threw him off. And they just kind of decided to scrap that. They said, I was a good pitcher before, I was effective. This isn't working. I'm going back to what I was doing. And I think you're seeing him be as confident as he was, and a lot more comfortable and a lot more productive, I guess, in these last few weeks, and especially today. Today was definitely his best outing he's really had in all of SEC play.
So where does that put this bullpen if he's back going? The Saturday for the bullpen's been a challenge. I mean, you look at every game, not every game, but several games in SEC play. They've had a chance on Saturday, and the games kind of got away from them late. Where is this bullpen as you start to really think about regional play? Because that chatter about host sites is coming, and Obviously, we're looking, at some potential news on that in the next 10 days or so. Where is this pen right now?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And what to me is so interesting about it is you're seeing some top guys struggle. Cannell hasn't been as crisp the last few weeks. Huntley obviously had a bad outing on Saturday, but you're really still seeing Tennessee lean on those guys hard. Mark McLaughlin didn't pitch any this weekend. Now he threw, I think, 50 pitches in the midweek, so he probably wasn't going to be available until today anyway. Camden Sewell didn't pitch. So you're seeing them almost, in a way, shrink it. And I think some of that's because this weekend Tennessee's starters all went deep in the game, so they needed to use less guys. But it does seem like they're relying on those top guys. And if Redmond Walsh can get back to being a top guy, I think that makes that a little more sustainable because that gives you three guys that you're really confident in. And it also gives Tennessee a little leeway because it's been at the point where if Cannell or Huntley struggles, Tennessee's bullpen's had a lot of problems. If you get Walsh going like he was 2 years ago, like he's been for most of his career, I think that makes Tennessee's bullpen a lot more dynamic. But I still think you need to see more from McLaughlin. You need to see more from Sewell. You need Mill Mabry got some run this weekend, but I still think you need to see it expand more, both with some of those guys that are in the lower end getting more innings, and then also testing out some new guys. So when you get into that regional situation and you're having to throw new arms, it's not their first taste of big time hitting all season.
All right, I got to ask you this question. Maybe not the fairest question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Tony Vitello has talked about all season long, putting the pieces together, surging at the right time, playing your best baseball down the stretch. We're not down the stretch yet, but you've turned the calendar to the month of May. Where do you put this team at in terms of how they're playing baseball right now? They won the series, they won the Texas A&M series. They're taking care of business, but are they playing at the level? Are they starting to peak, or are they kind of sort of what they were a month ago at this point in time?
I think overall they're probably closer to what they were a month ago. I think the one area that they're no doubt better and starting to peak is their lineup. They're hitting the ball just like what we talked about at the start of this. This has been much better the past few weeks, and some of that's probably to seeing less good pitching against Texas A&M and Kentucky. But I think you're starting to see the lineup look like what we expected it would look like, and it be as productive as we thought it could be. Pitching wise, I think they're far from peaking right now, just because you still don't have Blade Tidwell. He was good today, but you still haven't had him being consistent week in, week out, and the bullpen just hasn't been consistent at all. I don't think the past few weeks. So I think they need to clean that up with the bullpen and the getting Tidwell to hit his potential, because I continue to hammer on this point. When Blade Tidwell pitches to his potential, this Tennessee team is really, really good and really, really dangerous, because I think it gives them two really good starters. Because I think you have Chad Dallas, he's rolling. I think he's really good. Will Heflin, I think, is pitching about as well as you can expect, and you have the lineup going. So I think it's getting the bullpen going a little bit better, and then getting Tidwell more consistent, and then really trying to build off of the consistency and see if he can hit that kind of elite level talent that he has and he's shown in a few starts this season.
All right, as we close it out here, just a couple of notes to throw at you to ask. Where is Connor Pavoloni at the catching position? Tennessee goes to Missouri, who's struggling. So Tennessee's going to be doing a little scoreboard watching here tonight and tomorrow in terms of SEC tournament seeding. And the fact that they played Thursday, Friday, Saturday, does that change anything going into next weekend as they take on a road trip to Missouri? Those three things to close it out.
Yeah, starting with Pavoloni, Vitello said post game that they'll reevaluate him on sometime in the middle of the week. I think he said Wednesday. They did say he would be on the travel squad to Missouri, and they do expect that he would be able to contribute in some ways. He said he wasn't on the active roster this weekend, so that is a change. And I guess they could be a hiccup on Wednesday with his checkup, but that all signs point to him being in Columbia next weekend and contributing in some form or fashion. And then when you look at the Missouri series, I think when we started this 3-week stretch of Texas A&M, Kentucky, and Missouri, you wanted to see Tennessee win 7 of those 9 games. Now that's a lofty goal. You take winning SEC series every single time you get, but they're at that point. They've won 2 out of 3 the first 2 weekends. I think they have a chance to separate themselves and get a sweep against Missouri. And I think if Tennessee wants to win the SEC East or compete for the SEC title game, I think that's really, really beneficial, because Vanderbilt's not going to lose many weekend series. You need to get the sweeps when they're there. And the Missouri series next week's really their last opportunity to get it. And then it's scoreboard watching. It's been pretty big weekend for Tennessee and the SEC East. Vanderbilt took that first game over Florida in commanding fashion, and Ole Miss has jumped out to a big lead in game one over South Carolina. So I think that's big. I think South Carolina is a really big one to watch. I think you want Tennessee to have a 2-game lead over them going into that last weekend, so they can just get one game and still finish ahead of the Gamecocks in the Eastern Conference. And then going on to your last question, going from a Thursday to Saturday to Friday to Sunday, I don't really think it makes a big deal. No midweek game this week due to finals for the team, so you should have a Tennessee team that's really rested and really ready to go for a big opportunity next weekend in Columbia.
He's Ryan Shumpert. He has all the baseball news you could ever want. He keeps you up to date on all of it. You have the 3-2-1 coming up on Monday, and we'll certainly keep track on this Tennessee baseball team as they remain in the hunt for the SEC Eastern Division title. That's going to do it for this edition of Around the Horn. Thanks for joining us. Have a great rest of your Saturday night, everybody.